So the next part that we're going to talk about here is Pro Tools specific. So we're going to get into how you set up Pro Tools MIDI inside of Pro Tools itself. And let's go ahead and get looking at that here. So first of all, when you're starting off, and this is not something you have to do every time, you just have to do this once, or if you come back to it. To get your MIDI going, the menu Setup MIDI and MIDI Studio. And what this does is it takes you outside of Pro Tools. Pro Tools actually does its MIDI through the audio MIDI in Apple on the Mac OS. So what we do is go to Setup over here, MIDI right here, and then in here go to MIDI Studio right there. Boom. And this will pull up our audio MIDI setup, and this is where you set up your Pro Tools aggregate. Remember, we talked about this before. But I'm going to close my audio window and I'm going to pull up my MIDI Studio window here. And this is my MIDI Studio. Now you can see all the different things I have connected up, or I have had connected up over the years or whatever to this. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Let me just organize this a little bit here so you can see kind of what's going on. I got my DDJ 400, I got my EMU X board 49, I got my Minilab MK2 updater. What is that? Get out of here. MPC Live, and I don't have these connected up right now. You can tell I don't have it connected up because they're all grayed out. I don't have them turned on or whatever. The DJM 900 Nexus, oh, I don't need that plugged in. And a Scarlett 2i4, yeah, whatever, I'll just leave that on. So the launch pad. And actually, let me put this like this. I'm just going to move these around a little bit in order of some kind of an importance here. It doesn't really matter so much, but I'm just kind of organizing things because I like to organize things. So there we go. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. All right. So, so I've got connected up right now to my computer. I've got the Arturia Minilab, and I've got the USB KeyStation 88 ES, which is just an 88 key keyboard. And these are what I can use to control Pro Tools. So I'm going to go ahead and quit out of this. You only just need to look at that just to make sure everything's in there correctly. And then the next thing we should do is go to menu Setup MIDI Input Devices. So I'm going to go up here to my Setup, go to MIDI and Input Devices right there. Boom. Now both of these are enabled. But if I didn't want to have something be controlling Pro Tools, or if it's not turned on for whatever reason, I can just click the button and turn it on and off like that. Both of these are turned on right now. I just want to keep them both on. That means I can play sounds from two different places. I can play them from my Minilab MK2, which is the black keyboard, or I can play them from my USB 88 key keyboard. This Minilab here is just, I actually usually don't have this thing plugged in. You can see it's a little bit dusty, which is kind of gross. I usually have my push over here, and then I've got some stuff over on my right-hand side. The Minilab, I use it more for like when I'm on the road or when I'm kind of hanging out or taking stuff to another place. Although it does work really well for that, like what I just was showing you with the with the Analog Lab. So that's that right there. And then if you have any kind of clock devices or anything like that, your beat clock here, you can turn that on. I don't have any clock devices plugged in right now, but you could enable MIDI beat clock for these. This is the type of thing where it's more advanced. You don't need to worry about it until you do. And so if you don't know what it's for and you don't have anything that's ever told you to connect it up or whatever, then don't worry about it. It's not worth kind of messing around with. Especially if you're doing everything inside of Pro Tools or inside the computer, you don't need to mess around with it at all. And then finally, under MIDI, we have input filter. The input filter is pretty cool because it allows you to turn things on and off for what you want to actually receive data for. For example, if you have a keyboard that's broken for whatever reason, it gets broken and this happens quite a bit actually, where it's always going to be sending data from like the mod wheel or from something like that, some kind of weird thing. Well, then what you can do is you can have it to record all MIDI data except for example, like we can go over here for the controller of the mod wheel here. So I can turn that on so it's not going to get data from something, and I can set these up. So if I have like a data fader that's like broken and it's like sending just crap data out, you can actually block that, which is pretty nice, nice little thing to have. All right. So a couple things in the preferences that I want you to set up here in the MIDI is if we go to Setup, Preferences here, and we go into MIDI right over here. Just going to zoom in on this so you can see everything here really clearly. And let me just show you one more time how I got to this. I went up to the top, I go to Setup, Preferences, and then in here I go to MIDI. So it comes in as display, I go to MIDI right over here on the right hand side. So what you want to do is a couple things you want to turn on. First of all, where it says display events as modified by real-time properties, make sure you turn that on. And then where it says default through instrument, set that to first selected MIDI track. Double clicking a MIDI clip opens the MIDI editor is what you want. You don't want it to open the score editor unless you know how to use the score editor. Delay compensation for external devices, don't need to worry about that. Standard MIDI pitch, that's fine. Use MIDI to tap tempo, whatever. Use F11 key for wait for notes. Automatically create click track for new in new sessions. This here is really useful if you are using Pro Tools to make your beats with. If you're using Pro Tools to produce beats, then I would turn this on, because what's going to happen is every time you make a new session, it's going to automatically create a click track for you, so you don't have to create that click track every time. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on for right now and hit OK. And all that stuff here is in the notes. So automatically create click track in new sessions, leave it on if you're producing in Pro Tools, leave it off if you're only mixing in Pro Tools. So if you're just using Pro Tools for doing ADR stuff for movies, or if you're just mixing bands and you're not making any new music and you're not making beats in Pro Tools, then you can leave that off. You don't want it to create a click track every single time. Sometimes you're going to have a click track, sometimes not. It's up to you, but I would leave it off because you can just create a click track really easily. Display events as modified by real-time properties. We will talk about that tomorrow. It's not something we're going to talk about today, but I want you to turn that on. Menu view, mix window views. All right, we're going to come back to that real quick. This follows first selected track, the default through instrument here. This one here follows first selected MIDI track. What that does is it means that if I have two instruments here, so what was this one? Let me go in here to contact. Let's put a piano in here. I'm going to put one of my new favorite. Actually, no. Let's get this drum kit going. We got the drum kit here. No, don't save the changes. I'm going to get my drum kit going here. So I've got my. All right, so I've got my drum kit there. I'm going to use that for my drum kit, and let's name this one Drums. Drum kit, boom, like that. And this one here is my, that's bass sound. But let's get a better bass sound in here. Okay, I like that sound there, and we'll use that one. All right, so we got those there, and let's get another sound going on. I'm going to make one more instrument here. Stereo instrument, track, boom, and let's get this in here and go for a keyboard sound, and let's use one from yeah, it's a cool bass sound, right? Let's use a keyboard sound from, do I have any Avid instruments? I don't even think I have any Avid instruments in here, or Air instruments. Yeah, I never loaded those up. I'm just not it's just too much stuff on my computer. So I didn't load that stuff up, but Serum is cool. Actually, here, I'll use one of my favorite ones. This is Arturia's Pigments. I'm a huge fan of Pigments. Pigments is great. And we'll load this one up, and let's get a keyboard sound in here. keys, lo-fi piano. Let's see what you sound like. Yeah, there we go. Let's hear what this one sounds like. I got some favorites over here. Goza. West Coast keys. Final Sunset. Okay, cool. So I've got some sounds here, and we'll call this one bell keys. I'm going to label it here right now, and I recommend you always label stuff before you get going. What I like to do sometimes is for my MIDI tracks, I put a little M before it here, so it just says M bass, whatever, M keys, and that way I just know what it is. And what that preference here, let's go back and talk about this here. Default through instrument follows first selected MIDI track. But what this means is that I do not have to have these record enabled here or record armed. All I have to do is click on the track name, which is super useful. It's very, very fantastic. So I can play my drums like that. I can play my bass. I can play my keys like that, and I just have to click on it. Now, if I want to record stuff in here, I do have to click on the record arm button. But if I just want to play it, I can just play it, and that's what that preset does. That's what that preference does there. All right, menu, event operations, input, quantize. What to quantize? So this is, I recommend turning this on in the beginning, as you know, unless you're like a really good keyboard player. And again, it really depends on how good of a keyboard player you are or not. I recommend turning on the input quantize. What quantize does is it locks your notes into your rhythmic grid. So things are going to sound good most of the time, just kind of by default. So that is up here under event operations, up at the top, menu, event operations, input, quantize. We're going to go in here and we're going to go to event operations, input, quantize, this one right here, input, quantize. Click on that, and I'm going to turn it on here, enable input, quantize. Let me just zoom in on this so you can see a little bit better. Enable input, quantize right there. Click on that. Keep it at the 16th note. What you may want to do, though, if you're pretty good at playing, but you're not amazing, kind of like me, I'm pretty good, but I'm not amazing, turn on the strength and set the strength to, let's say, 60-something%, in the 60s somewhere. And that what that means is that it's going to quantize it 60, in this case, 64% of the way, and not 100% of the way. So, and we're quantizing to the 16th note. Now, if you are new for all this stuff and you do not know what that means, don't worry, just follow these rules right here where it says the 16th note should be at the BPM 130, or up to 130, and then 8th note should be above 140. So if you're making trap, do 8th notes. If you're making hip hop and other stuff, techno and whatever, I would say use 16th notes. And I say here, put the strength around 95%. I'm actually going to have my strength be lower just because I prefer it to be lower. But actually, let's not do 60%. Let's do a little bit higher. Let's do 80%. There we go. All right. So now I've got this here. Let's see what else we got over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with MIDI Merge. And this is like when we're making a new beat in Pro Tools. It's very similar to when you're doing the audio recording. It's just we're doing it on MIDI tracks. So just make sure what y'all are seeing here. I'm going to show you my keyboard here so you can see what's going on. Keys, there we go. Cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at my tracks like this, and I'm going to go ahead and let's do a 4-bar loop. So a 4-bar loop is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to stop at bar 5. Put my grid into grid mode. I'm going to just go ahead and highlight this. I'm clicking and dragging over, and this key right here, this button right here, link, timeline, and edit selection. I want to make sure that's off. This one right here, turn that off. See, this is on, that's off. What on does, it means when I click around and I highlight stuff, it's going to go ahead and select my timeline. I don't want it to do that, so I'm going to turn that off. The shortcut for that is Shift/. I don't know if it's showing you that up here on the top of the screen. Nope, it's not. It's just showing a question mark, which is not correct, and that's why I don't like this shortcut thing up on top. It's Shift question mark is what you want it to do. So that turns that on and off. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to leave it off, and I'm going to highlight the 4 bars, and I'm going to leave it off. That means when I mess around here, it's not going to click around or anything like that. I'm going to create a click track. There we go. As my click track. Oof, why is that not the Tony click? Hold on. I'm also going to show you my inserts and my sends. Cool. Why did you not default user settings? I may have changed that back actually at one point. All right, Tony click. There we go. Cool. Turn that down a little bit. And I'm going to get a master fader as well. Boom. And also let's get a aux track, stereo aux track. So there we go. And this is going to be reverb. And so I've got everything named here. I've got everything labeled. It's all nice and good. I'm going to make this smaller. I don't need it to be, that can just be mini. All right, I can click on this, and now I can, right, now I don't want it to be that fast. I'm going to go ahead and slow this down to 105. And what I'm going to do here is we're going to set this up for MIDI Merge. Now what MIDI Merge does, and if this is in the notes, if MIDI Merge is turned on, new notes will be added to the clip. If it's turned off, new notes will be recorded over the clip. The way we change this is you go to Menu, Window, Transport. Right over here, Window, up top, Window, Menu, Menu, Window, Transport down here, right there, there it is, boom, and it pulls up your transport window, and I can turn my MIDI Merge on. Now, you'll see here, there's where my MIDI Merge is, it's grayed out. The reason why it's grayed out, and this is weird, I do not know why it's like this, but the reason why it's grayed out is because my loop record is turned on. I am not sure why that's a thing. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why they didn't just make it like it is, but for somebody at Pro Tools and Avid, this makes sense. It's been like this for forever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on. I turned off my loop record by Option L. Option L, you can see in the upper right hand corner, Option L, boom. So I turn that on and turn it off again. There we go. So now I can turn my MIDI Merge on. And what's going to happen is as I play through, we're going to use that one right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit, let's go ahead, it's a loop play is on. Yep, so I'm going to hit record. No tracks are record enabled. Make sure I record enable this track. Hit the 3 key. And I'm going to slow this down actually. Slow you down. There we go. Now I'm going to just record some steps. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to record my hi-hat first. And it's in MIDI Merge mode, so why is that doing? That's weird. Nah, Pro Tools. Okay, here we go. Let's do it again. 3, 4. Now it's going to play that, and I'm going to let it go to the end. I'm going to turn my metronome off now, and you can do that one of two ways. You can turn it off down here in your transport if you still have that open, or you could just mute the click track over here. I usually just mute the click track because I don't usually have that transport open. And I can just hit record. Let's go ahead and play. Mix these a little bit better. Cool, and I just made a little loop thing here. Now what I can do is remember what you did in that Pro Tools, what was it, Pro Tools 1 or Pro Tools 2, I don't remember, but the one where you kind of had all the clips and you laid them out. Well, so here we can just do that here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this one, I'm going to move it over like this. I'm just going to take this one, hold down Option and drag it over. And remember what I said before, all this stuff builds on itself. So please don't forget anything that you learned before. So I've got this here. This is all my MIDI. I'm going to change my grid up top to 1 bar here. And let's do this. I'm going to drag these over. I'm just holding down Option and dragging them over like this. And there we go. Now let's hit play and listen to that. Let's play this here. Okay, so AJ says, can you change the hi-hat from 8th notes to 16th notes in Pro Tools, or do you have to try to play it on the keys? Yes, you can. And I'm going to show you how to program stuff in by hand. I just wanted to play it first because that's just faster for me. So a couple things real quick. So let's go ahead here. I'm going to change my camera so you can see my smiling face here. Actually, I'm just going to, yeah, let's do that. Okay, so check this out. So this is one layout. I'm not a huge fan of this layout, actually. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start it with the drums and the bass. And we're going to put a little filter on that drum. We're going to use all the stuff that we've been talking about so far. So I'm going to change this layout here and move these things over. And I'll show you how to change all that here in a second. And I'm just going to drag these over like this. Here we go. So actually, let's just end it right there. Yeah, cool. So let's hit play on this. Cool. All right, and so you can get the tempo established a little bit better here with this. So just to answer your question real quick, AJ, what I can do is if I double click on any of these clips, double click, it pulls up my drum editor down here in the corner or in the bottom. You could also, you can also have this open up in the screen below. Down here, you click on this little, if you look at my screen here, down here in the bottom left-hand corner, see that little button there? That allows me to put my MIDI window down here on the bottom. So any kind of MIDI stuff that I click on, it's going to show that to me down in the bottom screen. And that's a little bit more like how Pro Tools or Logic work. It's like a very Logic thing. Sorry, Pro Tools, I meant Ableton Live. It's a very Logic or Ableton Live thing. So you could do it like that, and all we do is just zoom in on this. And if we wanted to just grab all these here and turn it into 8th notes, I'm just going to, 16th notes rather, just going to drag across, and I hold down Option, and I drag it, and I'm just going to turn these down here. There we go. Ow, 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 why did that happen? Did that happen to y'all? What just broke? That just destroyed my ears. Did that happen to y'all as well? That was horrible. Why did that happen? All right, well, let's Yeah, goodness. Why? I don't know why that happened. Sorry about that. That was insane. What is broken? Analog Lab, what are you doing? Oof. Oh, that was... Oh, man. Sorry about that. That happened to me, too. And I have no idea why that happened. Really weird. Okay, well, anyway, so let's see here. Let me do this. I'm going to go ahead and open up a new new session. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording. I'm probably going to cut that out so it doesn't kill people.